All right, well, thank you for having me. It's really an honor to speak here before the National Press Club. I have an exciting announcement with respect to space, and I think one which should be provide some inspiration and some belief that the innovation is alive and well in America and going in really interesting directions. But before I'm going to get to that, but I'm going to preface that with the logic that explains why such a thing is important, because it may not be immediately obvious. So first of all, going back to why am I in space and electric cars and solar power and internet stuff, it goes back to when I was in college and I was trying to think of what were the most important things that would affect the future of humanity. What could have a significant positive effect on the future of humanity? And the three things that I came up with were the internet, sustainable energy, both production and consumption, and then space exploration, but specifically making life multiplanetary. And I didn't expect when I was in college to actually be involved in all three of those areas, but as a result of some success in the internet arena, that gave me the capital to get involved in very high capital endeavors like cars and rockets, which really are very high capital. So the reason for I'm mostly going to talk about space. So I want to explain sort of why do I think space is really important, and what about space, and because I believe in sort of building things up from a rational sort of framework of logic, and so you start with sort of, well, how do you decide that anything is important? And I think the lens of history is a helpful guide here, in that things that may seem important in the moment, but actually aren't that important in the grand scheme. Over time, if you look at things over a broad span of time, the things that are less important kind of fall away. And if you look at things from the broadest possible span of time as it relates to life itself, and the evolution of life has been, primitive life, I think, started around 3.5 to 3.8 billion years ago. And what are the important steps in the evolution of life? And obviously there was the advent of single-celled life, there was differentiation to plants and animals, there was life going from the oceans to land, there was mammals, consciousness, and I would argue also on that scale should fit life becoming multiplanetary. And in fact, I think consciousness, it's the next step, actually, because you really kind of need consciousness to design vehicles that can transport life over hundreds of millions of miles of irradiated space to an environment that they did not evolve to exist in. It would be very convenient, of course, if there was another planet just like Earth nearby, but that's unlikely, and as it turns out, not the case. So I think you couldn't really. There's no way for life to sort of just by dint of natural selection just sort of get over to Mars and survive. So you need consciousness. You got to design. So I think it is the next natural step. So I think if one could make a reasonable argument that something is important enough to fit on the scale of evolution, then it's important, and maybe worth a little bit of our resources. And one can also think of it from the standpoint of life insurance. There's some chance, either as a result of something humanity does, or as a result of something natural like a giant asteroid hitting us or something, that civilization, life as we know it, could be destroyed. There's clear evidence for life being destroyed multiple times in the fossil record. So we don't need to guess that this is something that can occur. It has occurred. The Permian extinction being a particularly interesting one, because I think that destroyed somewhere between 90 and 95% of all species on Earth, which doesn't tell the full story because most of the remaining species were fungi. So unless you're a mushroom, you're out of luck. So you know, if we think it's worth buying life insurance on an individual level, well, perhaps it's worth spending something on life insurance for life as we know it, and arguably that expenditure should be greater than zero. So then we can just get to the question of what is an appropriate expenditure for life insurance, and you know, I think probably if it's something like 0.25% of the GDP, that would be okay. I think most people would say, okay, that's not too bad. You know, it's but you know, you don't want it. You want it to be some sort of number that is much less than we spend on healthcare, but maybe more than we spend on lipstick. You know, something like that. And I like lipstick. It's not like I've got anything against it. Yeah, I can't wait for that comment to go out there. That's kind of the thing that I think it's important that we give a little bit of our mind space towards. And I think it's also one of the most inspiring and interesting things that we could try to do. It's one of the greatest adventures that humanity could ever embark upon. And you know, life has to be more than about solving problems. You know, if all that life is about is solving problems, why bother getting up in the morning? There have to be things that inspire you to, you know, that make you proud to be a member of humanity. And you know, the Apollo program is certainly an example of that. It's only a handful of people went to the moon, and yet, actually, we all went to the moon. We went with them vicariously. We shared in that adventure. I don't think anyone would say that was a bad idea. That was great. So, you know, we need more of those things. Or at least we need some of those things. And you know, even if someone's in a completely different industry and in a completely different walk of life, it's still something that's going to make you feel good about the world. And that's another reason why I think we should try to do these great things.